waits with bated breath to learn where LeBron James will play in year 24. LeBron's agent, Rich Paul, was on NBA Today Friday and reassured people what LeBron is looking for in his next team. Take a listen to this.
I think when you have a player like him, he unlocks something on one of all 30 teams. No roster, no organization is guaranteed to win a championship, but you do want to be competitive. You do want to have an opportunity come late April and early May to compete at a high level and give yourself the best chance of winning. He's not chasing the ring. You know, you hear these things like, why do you have to chase? He got 4. There's nothing to chase. He's not chasing the ghost or anything like that.
Say good morning to Vince Goodwill and Tim McMahon, who are up bright and early. Gentlemen, we appreciate the time. Vince, let's start with you. Your reaction to Rich Paul's comments.
There's nothing that I thought that he said that didn't make sense. When you're at the stage that LeBron is in, Joe and Tim, like, nobody's opinion about LeBron is going to change if he goes, no matter where he goes, right? And I think there's a realism about his comments about how difficult it is to win an NBA championship. It's no different, honestly, than what Steve Kerr has said about coaching the Golden State Warriors when he called the Warriors a fading dynasty. You want to be able to play meaningful basketball in late April and early May. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that you're on a top 2 contender? Or does that mean you're on a team in the second round of the playoffs that has a reasonable chance of advancing to the conference finals? Last year, had Luka Doncic been healthy, had Austin Reeves been healthy, maybe that would have qualified for the Lakers, but clearly that relationship has soured. And if you add that criteria to it, there's a bunch of teams that would be a second-round team with LeBron James. It's just a matter of, is that his specific criteria?
Like, when did chasing rings become a bad thing? I thought the whole point was to go out and win rings. So if he's chasing rings, I don't know why it's being phrased here, Tim, as something that's a negative. Do you have a problem with LeBron, quote, not chasing rings?
No, I don't. I understand why Rich Paul is making that distinction, because he doesn't want it to seem like LeBron is looking for the best bandwagon to hop on. And look, we haven't heard about him going to the Spurs. We haven't heard about him going to the Thunder. Those would be the easiest bandwagons to hop on, but he's looking at other teams. Where does he end up? That I don't know. We're all kind of in the dark, much like Vinny in his Vegas hotel room there. But I understand why Rich Paul is sensitive to perception and only says he's not chasing a ghost. We know what he means there. He's not chasing Jordan. This isn't about, let me make my final statement as far as I'm the greatest of all time. He's already got a case. That's a whole nother debate, but that's not what this decision is about.
No player in NBA history has ever won titles with 4 different teams. For LeBron to be able to pull something like that off, Vince, does that then create a situation where the GOAT debate finally ends in LeBron's favor?
The GOAT debate ended a long time ago, let's be perfectly honest, y'all. Like, at least for me. Unfortunately, for some people, and maybe even for LeBron, he feels like he can still chase this ghost. And yes, Tim, I'm not just in the dark, I was born in it, molded in it. You merely adopted it. And I think for LeBron James, he's trying to adopt this argument to some degree that he's better than Michael Jordan about all these other different things and metrics, longevity and all that. For me, if we're going to talk about it, is how great are you when you are at your best? And although he has a top 2 case, I think there's a lot of people who say Michael Jordan's best is better than LeBron's best, and there's nothing more that he can do that can change that argument. Can LeBron accept that is the question.
So let's move off the GOAT debate then and talk about the future for LeBron James. Tim, all things considered, Cleveland, is that the best option for LeBron to return home to, in your opinion?
That's my favorite option. It's up to him to decide what the best option is. But look, I would love to see a storybook inning, and whether he can deliver another championship to Cleveland or not, that's where he's from, Northeast Ohio. That's where he started. That's where he returned to deliver the title that they've gone more than a half century without across all pro sports. So it just feels right that's where this all would end. And look, the storyline, all that stuff, that does matter. The guy's had a documentary crew trailing him for years now. It's going to continue this season, so you do want a nice, sweet storyline to wrap this all up.
Speaking of wrapping up sweet storyline, Vince, how is it possible that you are located in the center of the most well-lit city in the history of the world, and yet you find yourself in the dark?
Because the sun hasn't come up yet, Joe. It is, what time is it? 5-something in the morning here. Relax. My presence is a present, all right?
All right, ease yourself into the day. We appreciate your time, gentlemen. Plenty more from these two later. Let's go to what's happening where Vince Goodwill is located. NBA Summer League, #1 overall pick, A.J. Devonta, and Darius Acuff Jr., the #7 overall pick, squaring off. Devonta's Wizards, Acuff's Kings. Early first, Wizards trail 3-0. Here comes Devonta on the transition pass. He's going to show you a little bit of everything in this game. There's the pull-up 3, looking good early. Later in the quarter, Wizards down 5-3. A barn burner. Transition pass, back, fadeaway jumper, knocking it down. Later in the quarter, we're tied at 12. Watch this. Devonta's 6'9", Acuff 6'2". How do you think this is going to play out for the shorter guy? Yeah, exactly as we all predicted. Acuff might want to put a move on there. Wizards are going to go up 14-12 on the transition play. Let's jump to the second. 38 seconds left. Wizards lead 52-39. Devonta on the drive. layup. A little bit of everything in these highlights. He's got the three-point range, the fadeaway from the mid-range. He's at the rim. Kid's looking good early. Third quarter, Wizards trailing by 13. Here's Akon. That's a pretty move. He wants to get involved in the action. He finished with 12 points on 4 of 14 shooting. Fourth quarter now. Debonsa comes up with a loose ball. Sweet behind the back pass, Julian Reese. Debonsa would finish with 23 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists. The Wiz would go on to win by 19.
You have heard this before. We are waiting on yet another LeBron James decision. The basketball world waits with bated breath to learn where he will play in year 24, and Philly remains a pretty intriguing destination. Sixers president Bob Myers was asked about what his pitch to LeBron would be. Here is what he said.
If he was here, I'd say, I honestly believe this is your best chance to win. You have to decide all the other things that are equally important. What I would just say is, if it's about winning, and that, let's talk about this team, because you can win here in Philadelphia.
Okay, so that is about as direct of a pitch, guys, as you are going to get. Bob Myers, who runs the Philadelphia 76ers organization, Vinny, giving that pitch to Max Kellerman, Rich Paul, LeBron's agent. So what do you hear, Windy, when you hear Bob Myers, his words, the recruiting style? What is that telling you about Philly's process in trying to get LeBron?
Well, it's more about the entire LeBron process than anything, because this is how the 76ers are getting to talk to LeBron. That was on Rich Paul and Max Kellerman's podcast, but it was essentially a meeting with LeBron James. That's how you talk to LeBron in 2026. In 2010, he had 3 days of meetings where everybody came to an office building in Cleveland in $10,000 suits, and Jay-Z came to pitch him. In 2014, Dan Gilbert his jet was being tracked as he tried for a clandestine meeting in South Florida. In 2018, Magic Johnson stood on his driveway until free agency opened and then walked into his house in Los Angeles to make the pitch. Now you come on a podcast, and this is where we go as LeBron plays golf and works on his short game. So this is a demonstration of how the game has changed and how long the LeBron career and free agency processes have been.
Yeah, I'm amazed that he's still at the epicenter of free agency all these years later. You just referenced the decision, which was all these years ago, the anniversary being yesterday, July 8th. Are you amazed when you think about this process that he's still at the epicenter of free agency and dictating his own terms?
Yeah, and I think it's for a completely different reason. You know, 16 years ago, the New York Knicks spent 2 seasons getting themselves into position where they could pitch LeBron James. He dismissed their pitch in a matter of minutes. And then now, because he's willing to play for essentially next to the league minimum, any team has the option to go get him. So it's a completely different situation. Back then, there were just really a couple of teams he was considering. Now he could consider 10 teams, as Rich Paul outlined on another recent podcast interview. I don't think he's actually considering 10 teams, but the idea is that somebody could get a player like LeBron's caliber for next to nothing in NBA dollars. And so while it is a repeating of LeBron being pitched, in some ways it's extraordinarily different and very unique.
Yeah, Vince, I want to bring you in here. When you hear